Welcome back to Chessometrics. Today I continue my recap from German Masters, and today I show a game which I play in second round against Lisa Sigman. And this game I played with the black pieces. So that was a game in Caro-Kann defense. I played black and Lisa played line with e5. That I think the main line in Caro-Kann. And after bishop e5 it is many moves here. It can be like directly g4. It can be, of course, bishop d3, it can be also c4, but she chose the line with h4, and after h5 she got directly bishop g5. Usually white play firstly bishop d3, and after trade e6, then bishop g5. But Lisa chose here directly bishop g5, and I thought that it was some maybe preparation, because after queen b6 she played next move bishop d3. And I think the idea when the queen takes on d4, it can come after knight f3, very like dangerous line for both sides. That's why I did not want to get all of this on the game, and I chose just take on d3, and after e6 idea is very famous in such position, just queen a6, because after trading these queens for black it seems like everything okay, and next step can be bishop e7 or just push c5, and position about equal, and without this active queens on d3 for black is like everything like okay. So okay, in the game was another move. White played queen e3, and then idea was knight h6, take the knight on e5. She took bishop h6, then knight f3, and of course c5. The black would like something to do in the center, of course c5 with idea maybe knight c3, then rook g6, and also this is a very like usual idea in such position in Caro-Kann. So okay, that was in our game. She took on c5, queen b5, knight goes on a6, I take c5, and of course queen on c4 now maybe the position for the queen was not the best one on c4, maybe on e4, but I thought on the during the game that queen on c4 like more active here like on a4. So okay, after rook h3, rook g6, this is also a very strong move, because now pawn on g3 under attack, and in case if the white play g3, the rook on h3 have no active plan, like no way play rook f3. That's why she played just long castle, and after rook g2 she played rook f3. So I think rook f3, that's quite good move, and of course the black king not so sure on e8, still in the center, and I think the main idea after rook f3, then I show you how the game could happen if, for example, I play rook c8, and in this case white really have a very nice move. It is some tactical idea, rook take on f7, and of course if the king take on f7, it will be some check on f3, and white can back take on g2, and of course the black king still will be very open and very weak in the center. So that's why after rook f3 it's very important to play rook g3. This is a very important prophylaxis against such move like rook f7, and of course the rook stop queen which can comes on e4, and there is no more attack on f7. After rook g4 she continued queen d2, and of course knight c5, very logical move, and in the game was also a very logical move rook c3. Of course the white would like to activate somehow the white pieces, at some point get some initiative for this developing. So after rook c3, of course I think it's only choose between two moves. Firstly knight e4, and secondly firstly take on b3 with different ideas. For example, knight b3, I think bishop b4 very strong. That's the first idea. And secondly idea, if for example a pawn take on b3, queen can goes on a6, also with two idea. Firstly bishop b4, and secondly queen a1 mate. So that was my thought during the game, but after taking knight b3 and last moment I saw interesting moves, a c pawn take on b3. In this case, at some point it will be square for the queen, it will be some double attack, and after queen a6, firstly it gets f3 variation, and after queen g5 it seems really very dangerous for black position. Of course, still black king not so sure of e8. So that was my thought during the game, but of course I would like to choose something another. That's I play knight e4, and it gets the variation after rook c4, knight take on d2, and now we've got this endgame. Of course, for black is much better because the black have some material up, but here also I have to play very like technically, because still the position for white, the rook on c7 very strong, also knight on d4 perfectly strong. Some idea can be knight b5, for example, c4, rook can attack both sides on b7, f7. That's why technically black have to play very really concrete and not forget about the first, which have to be on the first place in such position is a prophylaxis. That's why I start with the rook b8. Yeah, I have to stop firstly rook b7. Of course, c4, very logical and strong move, because the white have to open all position for the rooks and then get this line for the rooks. But after c4 take on c4, take back a6, second prophylaxis move against knight b5, the white have only last chance somehow to get away with the knight and play rook d7. But in this position, of course, I also have to think how I can stop rook d7. Maybe parallel I have something another, or like what can I do? And then I saw that actually after rook h4 and rook d7, the black have some extra tactical ideas here. So, okay, you as well can put my video on pause and try to look in which tactical ideas here also can be. Yes, you are completely right. Of course, after rook d7, rook just take on c4. And the idea that after rook c4, king take on d7, and there is no activity for white, there is no active rooks, of course. And in case taken on f7, that wasn't the game, the black can easily trade the rooks. And here, of course, 2 pawns up have to be enough for winning. But the last question, of course, accuracy have always to be, yeah, and prophylaxis as well on the first place. And my question to you, how would you like to continue in this endgame? Of course, it is completely winning, but how would you like to continue? Well, if you make next move rook d8, you are really good understanding in chess in endgame, because of course we have not to forget what actually is the threat here for white. And the threat not in a rook, the threat next move knight d4, and after knight d4 comes knight to e6. And how to stop all of this? If, for example, bishop e7 as well knight d4, and after king f7, knight can go on f3, and this is duet with the knight and rook can just, I don't know how to react after knight g5 and how to stop all of this. I think h4 like not enough. The one pawn and h is not enough for win can be. That's why rook to d8 have firstly to stop knight of d4, secondly stop the king on d2, and third, of course, we need activate our rook in the game, in the end game. That's why the next step for the rook will be rook d3, from which square rook will be a really good one, because rook can help also h pawn, and also from this square rook can directly stop all of this idea of rook c3. And after this move, I think that was the last technique move in this endgame. Why after rook b7, just h4, and of course the white cannot stop this pawn. After e4, that like rook d3, rook goes on g3, and the game after several moves stopped, because the white cannot cope with all of this activity. So, okay, thank you that you show this video. I thought it was some elements very nice in endgame, and it's really in some winning position you have to understand how to cope with all of these elements, how to be concretely till end, yeah, and how to play not giving your opponent some chances, yeah, because also in endgame, especially in rook endgame, some complication endgame, you have to really be very carefully to play and not forget about prophylaxis even in winning position. So, okay, see us next video. Don't forget success through chess, and next game comes soon.